Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to the Reality of Real Estate podcast. I am one of your hosts, Christopher Lynch, and welcome my co-host.
Hey everybody, my name is Brianna Lehmann.
We give you a real take on making homeownership attainable.
We will be breaking down real-life scenarios, trends in the current market, and giving you our personal tools to make homeownership not just your dream, but your reality.
Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and ready to take action towards building your own empire.
Because when you invest in real estate, you aren't just purchasing a home, you're investing in your future. Welcome back.
Welcome. I'm just sitting here with Petty Bree.
I'm not petty. You're petty. I'm not even going to get into it because we just need to jump right in. So to piggyback off of what we just talked about, like buyers being ready and not ready, all of that. One thing that I talk to buyers a lot about is out-of-pocket expenses throughout their transaction, because it's more than just down payment and closing costs. And like I was texting you yesterday too, like.
Yeah, speaking of petty, I tried to help you out, and then you said that you already have my own that's, branded to me.
Well, you didn't tell me that. And I have to hand these things out. Well, no, I don't have to. So whenever I do a buyer's consultation, it comes up like these are your out-of-pocket expenses. And I always end up writing them out for them. And like, it would just be so much easier for me to have something that says like, here you go. And then of course, price point is going to be different for certain things, but at least I could
Welcome to 2024, Granny.
I can't believe that I don't make my buyers books. Since I work on a team, they do them for us. Yeah. They're uniform for a reason.
Yes.
But I'm like, I'll just print it off for the whole team. I can't believe that we don't have them yet.
Well, it's not really fair all the time because, like, if you do have a cash deal,
right, it's going to be different.
They're going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it is, like in our previous episode, we talked about, investors, like their costs are going to be different. But if you're just looking for
a generalization, Well, and what I did, and I'll bring it in next time, it's not done yet, but it will say, for instance, home inspection. This is the general price. It's going to vary based on square footage, the type of inspections that you're going to have. Same with earnest money, closing costs, down payment. Like all of these things are not a set price. But I do think it would be good for us just to touch base on them so that buyers have an idea of like, okay, so if I'm going to look in the $200,000 range, I know earnest money is going to be 1% of that. So $2,000.
But that also just depends on the area.
It does.
Yeah, because like I do quite a bit of deals in Tusk County, and they don't really care about earnest money.
Really?
It's odd. Like
that is very odd because I've done quite a few deals down there too, and
that's because you are up here and it's normal for here, and then just like, hey, how serious is your person? But there, like, I mean, it could be a $350,000 house, and they don't necessarily care.
That's odd. So back up, earnest money, for those that don't know. Yeah. Because that's all, they'll look at me like, what is earnest money? So earnest money is serious money.
Like a good faith.
Good faith is exactly what I put on my sheet. And so it's a deposit that is made at the time of acceptance of contract. However, you will see it as a credit on your settlement statement at the end. So buyers are always like, so does this money, do I not get this back? Is it like a security deposit? What is this? So it will show up as a credit as your closing cost on your closing cost or your down payment. I've had people, my sister, for example, she got her earnest money back at closing because she had seller concessions and she used a down payment assistant program. So again, that's case by case. Rule of thumb for me and most agents in Stark and Summit County is it's 1% of the purchase agreement price. So that could be $1,000, it could be $2,000, but it is typically 1%. I have written it less if the buyer doesn't have it.
Correct. I was going to just bring that up to say that if you have someone who is using down payment assistance, and depending on the lenders, like sometimes the pre-approval letter will say, because it'll tell you like basically buying power, so max purchase price, loan amount, and loan to value. So then if it is higher than what, for example, if FHA, if it does say loan to value is at 96.5, or it'll say like the CLTV, which is the total loan to value. If there is down payment assistance, it might say that it's at 100 or 101.5. So that would tell you that, yes, there is a down payment, but there's also a second lien there that is not technically allowing that down payment to fully be taken into account just because there's something second there. But if you know that going into it, it's, hey, okay, do they have enough money?
Mm-hmm.
And again, transparency is key. So that way, as a buyer, you can just say, hey, I am using down payment assistance. I really don't have a lot in earnest money.
Right.
That doesn't mean that I'm not a serious buyer, but I just don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
But that conversation is key, being transparent. Right. And then that way, it's not going to be 1%. So if you have $250 that you can put towards this,
right, yeah.
or if it's $500, then that is what you would be doing.
Absolutely. And I have done that for buyers. Our earnest money is $250 and or $500. It really comes into play, I would say, when we're in very heavy multiple offers, then putting more earnest money down to a seller is more attractive, because if you back out outside of the terms of your agreement, you could
lose it.
They're going to fight you for it. And we can talk more about that later, but ways that you could get your earnest money back is if your inspections go crazy and you release, or the appraisal, things that are within the terms of our contract. So be prepared. I would say anywhere from like $250 to $1,000. Just have it if you can.
Yes.
Because it is going to always make your offer look better and make a seller feel better to know you're willing to put some skin in the game.
Yes. That's essentially really what it is. Mm-hmm. It's like, it just shows that, hey, yes, I'm a serious buyer. I want to purchase this home, mm-hmm. and I need a loan because I can't pay cash for it.
Right.
And
which are most buyers.
Like, you're human. That's all that it is. It's not anything crazy. Mm-hmm. But I also would tell someone, when you're trying to look at earnest money, and speaking of closing costs, cash to close, is that if you are only prepared or have like allotted for, you say like, hey, like I've set aside this $1,000, $1,500, whatever that looks like, mm-hmm. that conversation is important, because you have your earnest money deposit. Are you doing any inspections? And mm-hmm. then also your appraisal. So if you have $1,500 and that needs to be able to cover all three of those, right. then that means that your earnest money deposit is going to be a little bit lower. Right. Because you're going to pay for your inspections at the time of inspection, or mm-hmm. some people like pay for them like that morning or whatever. Right.
Yeah. So you do not get your inspection report until the inspection is paid for. So before or at the time. So as far as inspections go, it depends on the square footage of the home. If you're buying a much larger house, they're going to be a little bit more. And then the type of inspections you're having. So general home inspection is the basis. They're going to cover the whole house. Pest inspection, that's an additional cost. Radon is an additional cost. Typically, mold is an additional cost, but I usually guide my clients with a good general home inspector is going to check for those things. If they find them, that's when we're going to then pay for the additional inspection, like save yourself upfront costs. So I would say a general home inspection is going to cost you anywhere from $350 to $500, depending on the size of your home and who you're using. Mm-hmm. A pest inspection is like $90 to $100 now. It used to be like $50. So inflation. Yeah. Radon is anywhere from $100 to $200. So, and I broke all those down again, on our sheet, but
well and septic
is on there, and that is typically around $500 for both, depending on county.
Yeah.
County is a huge factor when it comes to well and septic. Portage is way different than Stark and Summit and Medina. Those are buyer paid inspections. Yes. Typically. I have had sellers pay for well and septic inspections because they are part of like a point of sale in northern counties. So those are done. But typically, as a buyer, you want to prepare yourself and make sure that you're able to pay for them. And they are non-refundable. That's correct. The biggest piece there. Whereas earnest money, there is a buffer as long as it's, in our contract that you are able to have an inspection. And if the inspection goes south, you can get that back if you remove yourself. But inspections are non-refundable.
Yeah. And then you have your appraisal. And so like that can vary anywhere between 625, like it being your primary residence. So anywhere between 625 to we'll just call it $700 on the high end. And
now, do they vary based on size of the home as well, or area, or?
So it actually can vary depending on the like how complex the property is. And so like I had one, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months ago, and it's a little 2-bedroom, looks like a little cottage. You know Matilda's teacher.
Yeah,
That's what it
Miss
was like.
Honey.
Yeah, Miss Honey. It reminded you of Miss Honey's little house. But it sat on 25 acres. And so the mineral rights that were there didn't transfer. And so their appraisal was a little bit more just because it's trying to figure out like, are any of this 25 acres, what's buildable, what's not,
Right.
sort of a thing. And just kind of navigating through that. Also, like if you are buying a multifamily unit, that can change the price of it. Even if it is going to be your primary residence, that can be a factor there. But generally, if it's FHA, VA, USDA, just call it 625 to 650. If it's conventional, it can be anywhere between 615 to 650.
So if their deal falls apart, is that refundable?
Technically, no. The appraiser is a third-party vendor.
Right. They're being paid.
Yes. So it's kind of the same as an inspector. The only difference is now for my team, I can't speak for everyone. My team is that if a deal were to fall through, you've already paid for an appraisal. If you come back to me, I will give you some form of a lender credit to go towards your out-of-pocket, like cash to close on the next deal. I can't give you a discount on the appraisal, but I can give you a credit to be factored into your overall
You've
cost.
definitely done that for my clients in the past. And some lenders will not do that.
Correct.
I've had lenders not. I've had a buyer pay for 3 full appraisals in the past, which, I mean, they also were, releasing deal after deal after deal, which is fine. They finally found what they wanted and it worked out for them, but it was hefty for them to say like, oh man, I got to pay another $600 appraisal.
And I think that's the hard part is because, like, yes, as the lender, you order the appraisal, but the appraiser doesn't work for that lender.
Right.
They are a partner
and I'm not
or
saying
a
they
vendor.
have to do that. Of course, it's not like whatever, but just stating that I've seen you give credits for that, which is nice.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome after you called me petty.
See, even your welcome was like, there was petty.
Because I was reminded that, see, I am nice and you called me petty. Anyway,
I didn't say you were mean, but anyhow.
Moving on. Brokerage fees.
Yeah.
That is something that will show up on your settlement statement and it says commission, which irks me because it's not a commission to me. Everyone will be like, oh, so what is this commission? And I'm like, it's not. It's a brokerage fee. It's basically a compliance fee, I call it, where ours is for Keller Williams Legacy, it's $295. Every brokerage has their own fee, and it will come.
Your guys' was higher.
No, it was actually lower, and then we just raised it to $295. So it was $225, which was very, very cheap because there's some brokerages that their brokerage fee is like $500 or more. So
I know one that is $990.
Wow.
Oh yeah, wow.
That is crazy. Yeah. Now, I have personally waived it in the past if they are buying, selling, and like if they're buying multiple properties. Like last year, I had somebody who was selling 2 properties with us and buying 2 properties. I'm not going to make you pay that 4 times, so I'd work with them. But rule of thumb is every buyer or seller has a $295 with us brokerage fee. There's a brokerage fee with every agent that you work with. So,
and it's listed in your contract.
It is in our contract. And but still, a lot of times, as much as you explain it, buyers sometimes just click through and, sign. But that shows up on the settlement statement as if you're getting your closing costs paid, though, that is covered as well, typically. So,
another thing is that like in our 2 episodes ago, we talked about title. So you're going to see your title fees and, especially for a seller, as much as I love a net sheet which is something that an agent can put together. If the title being used is not the title company that they use for numbers, then you can't necessarily hold on to that. So like the only
Right.
other document that you would get, especially if you're financing a deal, is you're going to go off of your loan estimate. And that loan estimate is going to walk you through your title fees. And sometimes they can be higher on there because you will get a credit for the title policy transfer. But it's going to show you the full amount that's on there. But title fees can vary just depending on the price of the home
Absolutely.
and title company.
I would say to our title company that I have an ABA with, affiliated business agreement, for people who don't know what that means, is Stonegate Title. And I have called them before and said, like, hey, this seller is my buyer. Can you give me a net out sheet? An accurate one so that I can give it to the lender and we can make this work. And they will do it. They'll send it to me that day and they will be accurate. They'll go off your closing date to say this is an estimate for taxes and prorates and all of that as well. So having that, and I know Stonegate has matched other title companies' fees because they vary as well. Just like with lenders, your fees are different based on company. And
because like when you text me about this yesterday, for your loan cost, my loan costs are $14.90. So that is technically underwriting and processing.
And that's part of your closing costs.
That's
correct?
part of your closing costs as the buyer, which is separate because like $14.90 underwriting and processing, that pays for your loan costs with my team. Outside of that, you have your credit report fee, you have your appraisal. Even if your property is not in a flood zone, you still have to get a flood certificate. So they have to do a flood search, which is $8 or $9. Then
That's very minimal, actually.
yeah, because if it is in a flood zone, then you have to pay for however much your flood insurance is going to be. And then you have title, you have your recording fees with the county, which can vary. And then you'll have your prepaids, so which is going to be what your daily interest charge, depending on when you're closing, and your taxes and insurance is part of that. And then you have what you are going to pay into escrow. And then all of those total, then you add in your down payment. But that is going to be like your cash to close number. So it is very important that if you are someone who is looking or you just got under contract and you're just not sure about what you're looking at, 9 times out of 10, you're looking at a loan estimate or a loan summary, and ask your lender to be able to walk you through it if you don't understand something.
And really, these are conversations I try to push to be had before we're under contract so that there are no surprises.
Yes. Amen.
But sometimes a house could come up today, we go see it, and it just happens. But having those conversations, and I have the out-of-pocket expense conversation several times from the first time that we meet until we're closing. And with you too, or whoever their lender is, we rope them in typically if they talk to me. Some don't. What? You know, I have a lender right now that has never spoke to me, not one time. I can't. Okay.
Yeah.
That was petty. Moving on. Having those conversations to make sure that you are very informed. I still write out like bills and stuff. Like I need to know to the dollar what my out-of-pocket expenses are for everything. I would drive you nuts.
But
I do this anyway.
Yeah. So don't really
Every
know,
day.
Don't really know
Ring,
what's
ring, ring.
new here.
Yeah.
But it's so important because if you only feel like your lender kind of, I don't know, skim through that part of the process and you're not using any form of down payment assistance, you're not getting any concessions, you need to know what you're going to be bringing to the table.
Yes.
Because you can't wait until a loan estimate and then you immediately have buyer's remorse, or you're trying to change things because you can't do what they're asking you to do, or you can't wait till a closing disclosure, which is at the end or closer towards like your closing date, to see that. And heaven forbid if you wait until anyone looks over a settlement statement.
Yeah, because that's usually sent out the morning of closing sometimes. I
Yeah.
don't see it. Usually, there have been times where I'm walking into closing, reviewing it, like
Yeah.
making sure, like, okay, this is good. And I will say I just had a buyer's consultation with somebody a week ago or so, and I asked her, I was like, look, you don't have to talk to me about these things, but I just want to know, like, do you have any money saved or not? And when they answered, I knew which way to move, like, and say, okay, so these are the things that you're going to want to save for, especially like the inspection and appraisal, because you can't really get away from those.
Correct.
We're going to talk to the lender about closing costs and down payment and earnest money. Again, that's something that will be situational, like circumstantial, I guess is the word I want to say. But knowing that, because we've had buyers in the past that after the buyer's consultation, they're so overwhelmed because all that they have saved is now wrapped up in inspection, appraisal, earnest money. And they're like, this isn't going to happen for us. I'm like, no, it is. Let's loop your lender in. Let's have that conversation with them too. And then I will pivot on my end of what you need and how we're going to work it out.
And just like right now, since we're in tax season, if you are someone who typically gets a refund, leverage it to where if you are someone who typically gets a refund, you want to buy a house, you don't have a lot of money saved, you can still be the traditional buyer and ask for seller concessions. You can get down payment assistance, all of that. But now you can leverage this refund to put you in a position to make it all make sense.
Right.
So if you were someone who said, hey, no, you couldn't buy a house last year, even though you worked so hard, or you used last year's refund to help get your credit up, whatever the situation might be, and now you're in a position to where credit's taken care of, you don't have the savings to pay for earnest, inspections, appraisal, or new furniture, whatever, now you're going to leverage that money.
Right.
And so you're going to hold on to it and reach out to whoever your team is, and that's how you start navigating through this. Because now you have the funds.
Right.
So it really just kind of matters of what is your buying power? Does the payment make sense for you? Is it doable? And do you love the home? You're in a prime spot of the calendar year, if you are someone who typically gets a refund check, to use that to put you in a position to buy a house. Or if you don't qualify for down payment assistance or anything and you get a refund, you could use that money to help you buy your next home.
Right. Maybe next time we should talk about down payment assistant programs or just other programs. I know we have talked about some programs that you offer in the past, but maybe breaking them down a little bit more of how you can qualify or not qualify or what that looks like.
Okay. I'm down.
Because I'm always interested in it too. Because like I know my sister was able to use it, and then we've had buyers that are like, yeah, they just don't qualify.
It's
but I have
usually they
another
don't qualify they make too much money.
Yeah.
Or their credit score isn't where like certain programs require it to be at.
Yeah.
Or unfortunately, debt to income ratio.
Right.
Because what I can typically approve someone without down payment assistance, without the additional overlays and things like that, debt to income ratio, or in sometimes credit score and income. But then when you throw the assistance in there, it takes them over the threshold, which is where it kind of comes back into those people. Are they someone who typically gets a refund to where now it can be used for putting them in a position to be able to hit and say that they're ready to go forward?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll talk more in depth about that because I feel like there's so many layers to that too that you could talk based on. So what we can do is I can put this sheet that I made and loop you in with it.
That you text
and
me
we can
for
post
the
it as
answers,
well
like
for buyers to say.
Cheating on the final.
Well, I feel like with different lenders too, the appraisal is a different price. And that is true. Like I've had some appraisals be $500 and then some be $700 or $800, just depending on the lender. So to wrap this up, it's time. Yeah, we talk a lot. Yeah, let's do that. I'll get that finished and then we can post it on the Reality of Real Estate Instagram page so that you can check it out and just have it as a reference point of everything that we talked about today. And then
can you also send me a blank, I didn't mean to cut you off like
No,
that,
that's
but
okay.
will you send me if you're allowed, a contract?
Mm-hmm.
Because I posted something on our Instagram page about contracts.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you to send me one, but I also was like, maybe we're allowed, maybe we're not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, because sometimes people have never seen a contract or
Right.
disclosures or anything until
We're doing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send one. So we can do that. We'll post the out-of-pocket expense generalization just so that you have a reference point. And if you have further questions, as always, reach out to us directly. My email is on our Instagram. So is yours, right?
Yep.
Or just DM us, and we're always here to help get the conversation started.
Yes.
You don't need $1 million to buy a house. Like, let's just.
You just don't.
You just don't.
Yeah. Just before we end this out, I have someone who is buying a house. They close on their deal on the 29th. On February 29th is when her deal will close.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a HUD home, but it is actually in like a neighborhood close to mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll just say higher priced homes
Mm-hmm.
and a home that you typically would not be able to get.
Right.
And payment is beautiful. And she is bringing $567 to the table.
Right. On a HUD home, which is crazy.
And I'll just say that this home is well over $350,000.
Wow. That she's purchasing it for?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Wow.
yes. But like HUD program, like we have a $100 down option.
Okay.
And
We'll talk about that too, because I didn't know that you had that.
Mm-hmm. And so.
And HUD, for everybody who's like, what is that? It is a government-owned property.
Yes.
It is just a different bank-owned program.
But like
so
FHA is backed by HUD.
yeah.
So yeah, like.
Housing and Urban Development
Yes.
is what it stands for. So
to be in a position like that is absolutely incredible.
mm-hmm.
And it doesn't happen every day.
No. But when you find it, jump on it. And
take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first house that she actually physically walked through. And it is the first house that she said that she never felt like she needed to second guess.
See, it finds you.
So
I
yeah.
love that. All right. Well, yeah, definitely reach out to us if you guys have further questions or, just again, as always, want to start the conversation. We are here to do that.
Yeah. All right. Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Toodles.
All right, friends, as we close things out today, remember homeownership is more than just a roof over your head. It's a symbol of your strength, resilience, and determination.
Take action, embrace growth, and never be discouraged about where you are in your journey.
And remember to follow us on Instagram at Reality of Real Estate Podcast.
Our emails are linked in the description below. You can reach us at
Christopher.Lynch@ccm.com.
and my email is blehmanrealtor@gmail.com.
All right.
Toodles.